Spooky Tuesday.
Bobby.
What is it, Bobby?
Guys, something's going on around here.
What
Okay?
is it?
There are like people or something living in those hills.
People.
No. Duck,
Bobby?
duck.
Bobby.
Bobby? Bobby, listen to me. We're in the middle of nowhere, okay? Nobody lives in those hills.
Hey guys, welcome back to Spooky Tuesday, a weekly podcast where we're breaking down all of our favorite slashers, thrillers, monster movies, and black comedies on the new scariest day of the week. I'm Sydney Thompson.
I'm Monica Height.
And I'm Chelsea Duff.
And this week we are talking about a movie that I watched when I was a teenager. Monica and Chelsea has never seen it before. I haven't seen it since I was a teenager, and there was a reason for it. That movie is the 2006 remake of The Hills Have Eyes.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to take a little responsibility for how this podcast is going to go because I did suggest this movie last
It was
week.
you!
Yeah, we had a different movie planned originally, and then we decided to push it because it was a 4th of July themed movie, and this episode wasn't coming out until a few days later, and then we were like talking about the 4th of July for a whole week, long after the 4th of July is over, maybe not ideal. And I googled like good summer horror movies and picked this one, and that was a mistake. And I apologize.
Yeah, I thought Sydney suggested this, and so I was shitting on you, Sydney, to Adam yesterday. So I'm so sorry.
Oh my God!
I was like, Sydney made us watch this fucking movie, and she didn't even remember how fucked up it was, and I'm so mad. I'm taking it all back. I'm so sorry, Chelsea. What the fuck?
Don't take it all back because I think she had a positive reaction when I suggested it.
It's fine. I don't blame anyone because no one could expect how fucked up this movie actually is. And I don't blame Sydney for not fucking remembering because I too plan on blocking this movie out as soon as we finish recording. I don't want to remember a goddamn thing.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
We did watch it with a couple of our spooky friends yesterday, and Rebecca, who you might remember from our magic episode during Doll Month, she did try to warn us going in, and we did in that moment be like, do we want to bail? But we committed, and then even after we watched the movie, we were like, do we want to bail? And then we committed again. So we sure
Here we
are
are.
here. We sure are going to discuss this movie. If you love this movie, I mean,
A lot of
apologies.
people like this movie too.
Yeah, I can't relate to them at all. You know,
Okay.
it's just like,
Yeah.
good for you, I guess. I'm just coming out at the beginning that, and I'm going to say that I'm going to be a fucking hater this whole time. There are some redeeming qualities, I will say that, but I'm going to be the registered hater this episode. Okay. And I'm going to try to be positive, but like, I don't know. It's just not in the cards. I don't think it's in the cards.
I did watch the beginning of this movie again before we started recording, and I think there's potential that I would enjoy it more on a rewatch. And that I would be once the shock had worn off, you know what I mean? Maybe I would be able to take it in a little bit better because there are people who really like this movie and there are people who really think this movie had good things to say politically and that it said them well. And then also there were other reviews I saw that were like, I disagree. And certainly some of them were like a little heavy-handed. I'm not totally certain that I have like a strong takeaway of what this movie is trying to impart politically other than like nukes are bad, which, you know,
Sure.
fair enough. Don't know that that's like a super controversial statement in the first place. But yeah, let's put it on the record. But yeah, I'm still a little bit parsing the movie, but frankly, when I rewatched the beginning, I was very interested in the beginning with the gas station attendant. And now I would like to know more about his story, and I would like to discuss his story in depth. And then also maybe we don't even talk about the rest of the movie. Who knows?
That's fine with me. Yeah, I'm good with not rehashing like all to most of it.
Okay. But for anybody who is, I guess, lucky enough to have not seen this movie and you're listening anyways, so you never have to watch this movie.
Not a bad strategy. Not
Yeah,
a bad
that's great
strategy.
I wish I was in your shoes, listener.
The Hills Have Eyes is about a family who falls victim to a group of mutated cannibals in a desert far away from civilization in New Mexico.
Yeah, it's
So, but even though it is set in New Mexico, it is actually filmed in Morocco.
Which is cool.
And at the exact same time they were filming this movie, they were filming like a 10 Commandments like TV show or something in the same desert. And so all of the actors were like sharing hotel rooms. So it was like mutated cannibalistic people and Jesus.
Love that.
Love a mix.
I could feel that in the film. That was clear that Jesus was really nearby. Too bad he didn't step in. Unfortunate.
Jesus did not take the wheel on this road trip that the Carter family was taking from the. Okay, so the Carter
needed
family.
Carrie Underwood there to help.
Right. Save me, Carrie Underwood. So the Carter family is the main protagonist group, right? Like, and there's a bunch of them. I mean, a lot of them. You've got Big Bob.
Big Bob.
Big
Got
Bob.
Ethel, his wife.
Oh God, that
Is
was
that
her
her-
name.
That's her name.
Oh,
Are you
poor
lying?
thing.
No.
I'm going to
Oh,
IMDb right
no.
now.
Oh no.
And
Why?
then-
That's not a bad name if your name is Ethel, but I just feels very old.
Yeah, it's one of
Well-
those names where it's like innately old. Like my grandma's name was Norma. Like no proof she was ever young. Like
It is crazy though. That probably was like a young person's name one time. You know
Right?
what I
Like a
mean?
cute little baby named Norma.
she was born.
And then, so there's the oldest daughter, Lynn, and her husband, Doug, who we do get some Jewish representation in this movie
Hey.
because Dougie Fresh over there. And then there is the middle child, Brenda. And then the youngest, I think, is Bobby. And we have Lynn and Doug's have like a tiny 1-year-old, not even 1-year-old daughter. She's a tiny baby named Catherine. And then we have
literally on IMDb named Baby Catherine.
baby Catherine. But here's the thing. Then we have the actual stars of the movie, and that is Beast and Beauty.
Or
Oh.
some would say Beauty and the Beast. That's
I know, but Beast is the star, so I wanted to put him first in billing.
it's
Beauty
not
got
Beauty's
fridged.
fault that Beauty wasn't the star.
Beauty got fridged by this movie.
I don't know. Beauty might be in my down bitch recommendations.
Beauty got killed off for everybody else's character development.
But here's the thing,
Wow.
Beauty is the
Wow.
reason
Wow.
that they are in that predicament. Okay, let's discuss. Yes, we're about to discuss this. So,
No,
How
what
is
the
Beauty
fuck,
at all at
Sydney?
fault?
yes.
I thought I was gonna be the hater this episode, but I like, what is this bullshit that you're spewing right now? Defend yourself.
Present me your argument.
Yeah, defend yourself.
Let's hear it.
I would like to present to the court. So it's not the opening scene, but it's the first time we see the family, and they are in the middle of fucking nowhere at a gas station, who we have talked about. Chelsea's very interested in this man's life. And we
Oh,
see
I figured it out.
the man earlier in the movie, he gets like a Louis Vuitton duffel bag full of like
Louis Vuitton, stop. Is it?
Yeah,
Actually,
I think so.
I thought you were being funny, and then I was like, wait, maybe it is.
No, like I think it's like nice. And it's like full of like jewelry and money and cell phones and a styrofoam container of an ear with a bunch of earrings in it. So good for them. But he is dealing with these he is dealing with the cannibalistic mutants who we don't see yet, but it is kind of clear that he is responsible for sending people who happenstance upon their way to the gas station. He sends them to the mutants campground where they live, and then they eat the people, and then they don't eat him. Yes, to the hills. And so they don't eat him.
The hills of which have eyes, just to be clear.
Exactly.
Where
And
the eyes live, yes.
Yeah, where the eyes live, those hills. Yeah.
yes. And the family's out, they're getting gas, whatever. But then Beauty decides to run, and she runs right into this gas station, which the guy is clearly living in, and she's like running in the back. And so Lynn goes in and gets Beauty, and instead of just like doing all this stuff, she sees the duffel bag full of like all of this stuff, and the gas attendant catches her and notices that she has noticed the stuff. So while they're getting ready to leave, he comes back out and he's like, actually, there is a detour that'll save you some time if you, make a left at this like fork in the road. So it's all Beauty's fault they got.
I disagree. But also I see what you're saying, because just before this, Mr. Gas Attendant Man, aka Father, I think he's the daddy of all these mutants, right?
No.
They called him like Father at one point.
No.
Do they?
Yes.
I don't think so.
Yes. I think he is their dad. And I will Google it in a second to make sure. Yeah.
I think you're, no offense, I think you're super wrong. There is a character named
Ruby's
Papa
dad.
Jupiter.
Is he Papa Jupiter? Because there was this part where they were all saying like, Father, blah, blah,
Daddy.
blah, blah. Daddy. And and he was
but
sitting in
they're
the porta
calling
potty.
they're calling Big Bob Daddy. Because Big Bob.
Then he said, but why? Oh, then why does he fucking kill himself? Sorry, spoiler alert. He blows his head off later on.
He doesn't.
No. It's like the boy.
Yeah, he's been feeding them the people, but I thought he was like, his monologue is something like, I was just trying to protect them. They turned out so fucked up. My kids, some shit, blah, 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 boom, explosion, blows off his head.
Okay,
terrible, very sad, very grotesque.
For a rewatch. Maybe there's something to this. I don't know.
Maybe I should find it right now. Like, I could be so wrong because I really tried to turn my brain off, but I remember that so distinct.
Okay, yes. See if you can find whatever you're talking about, because I would love to know if there is a monologue like that. My brain didn't information.
So I was wrong. But you
were close.
Spirit was there, like the spirit was there.
I didn't remember that quote at all. Once I also went back and rewatched it, I was like, oh, I see why Monica would form this conclusion when you're just like trying to shield yourself from this movie, which fair enough.
Well, the issue is he said this is the whole crux of the entire issue. He said the kids grew up in the mines, and in my mind I heard my kids grew up in the mines, which like, why would that happen unless he like rejected them because of their mutation? It would be super fucked up. But he would just like went out of his way to help these poor people by sending in live food to them periodically. Great, that's so nice. Read the quote, Chelsea. You have it, just so people know.
So actually, I'm also going to read his quote from earlier in the movie, just to set the scene a little bit, because the movie opens with like a title card being like, between 1945 and 1962, the United States conducted 331 atmospheric nuclear tests. Today, the government still denies the genetic effects caused by the radioactive fallout, ... And then there's like a whole bunch of other stuff. And then eventually you get to this gas station attendant who is going around and he's calling for this girl Ruby. He's looking for Ruby, which my brain did not at all process the first time. Like I guess I remember that there was some mystery woman in that scene, maybe. But he's looking for Ruby and he doesn't see her anywhere. But he hears somebody. So he also says, if that's you, Jupiter, I got some buckshot for you. You hear me? And then he says, I told you it's over. I'm out. You hear me? You're on your own now. And then he like kind of breaks down and he's like, I'm sorry, I can't do this anymore. And that's actually why I want to talk about him, because I would love to discuss the possibilities of how we got involved with this, what the deal was, etc. But anyway, when we cut back to him after he has sent them down the dead end cannibal mutant route, I guess.
Yeah, yes, Cannibal Mutant Highway.
All roads lead
You
to
know.
cannibal mutants.
Yeah, but he sends them to their doom. I in my opinion, because I was gonna call her Allison, like from Hocus Pocus, because she's Allison from Hocus Pocus. If you guys don't know this, Lynn, the oldest daughter.
That's reacting to you. I'm reacting to you. I didn't know that.
You missed that when we said it last night, I guess.
Oh yeah. There's a long period of time where I was not reading the chat either because I was so mad about everything with the movie. I was just like watching it. Anyway,
Fair
continue.
enough.
Lynn.
Yeah. Lynn is Allison in Hocus Pocus. And she maybe sees like his loot. I guess the gas station attendant could have thought that she even saw like the severed ear potentially, and he was just gonna either get his spot blown up, or I don't know. I personally think, could the ear have been a warning, or were they just like couldn't get the earrings out? You know what I mean? I think that's a discussion worth having. But anyway, either the gas station attendant sent them that way because he thought he was gonna get found out, or because they'd like delivered him this human sacrifice ear warning system and he was like, I can't stop even if I want to. But after he sent them down this path and Big Bob comes back to try and like get help after their tires are blown off on their car because they run over the like spike strip, he's like moaning and hiding in his scary, disgusting little outhouse. And the quote is, Jupiter, I got buckshot, you hear? You don't understand what's going on here. The kids grew up in the mines like wild animals. What kind of place is that for children? What kind of place is that? I did the best I could. I'm sorry. And then he gets himself.
He unalives himself.
He sure does. Just like in The Boy, where you know, you guys have seen The Boy.
The Boy.
I apologize for The Boy last weekend. You guys know what I'm talking about.
The Boy.
But
it's the guilt. The guilt got to him.
Yeah, just couldn't handle it anymore, and is like, he at least tried to stop, unlike the parents in The Boy who were just like, anyway, not my business anymore.
Moving on.
I'll leave you with this last little hottie and drown
just take care of her for a while, savor it, you know what I mean, like really make it last. But yeah, the gas station attendant here at least tried, and is a good guy, as it turns out. When you really I think maybe only on rewatch would understand in the beginning, because he's really just like looking after Ruby and these other children. I would argue there are other ways to do so, I suppose. But we don't really know who's in charge here. It sounds like he's kind of at Jupiter's mercy.
Maybe
I think Big Brain is in charge.
I think Papa Jupiter is the leader. I think Big Brain just has a big head.
So
which one's Papa Jupiter? What, like
Papa Jupiter is the one who gets exploded but not exploded at the trailer.
Oh, that guy. Okay, with the long hair. Oh, no. I'm so sorry. Papa Jupiter, yeah, that might be his name, but in my mind, that's Filch from Harry Potter. Just saying. They look exactly the same. That's Filch from Harry Potter. The guy who has the spike strip and is maybe probably the worst of them.
Lizard.
Lizard. That's Ben Stiller. For me.
You called him that last night, and I was like, why? But I didn't investigate further.
See, you weren't reading all of my messages either.
I
I said
was
that
reading
guy
them, I
looks
just-
like Ben Stiller, and then I called him Ben Stiller for the rest of the movie.
Did he look like Ben Stiller?
He looked like Ben Stiller.
Okay.
Mutant Ben Stiller.
The
Okay.
names are fantastic. Like there's Lizard, Papa Jupiter, Ruby, Pluto, there's Cyst, Big Brain, Mama, I think,
Oh,
Goggle.
mama.
Goggle,
Oh, Goggle. Yeah.
Goggle got by Beast, little beastie boy.
Honestly, other than Lizard, couldn't really tell you the names of anyone.
No.
Not of anyone. I know the family members' names. And that feels bad. But I also feel like they didn't really build up any of their characterizations. So I'm not gonna put it
No.
on me too much.
Yeah, it's not on you. And here's the thing. We've had this whole conversation because Sydney tried to say that it was Beast's fault that they went down that road. That's not true.
That
It's
beauty,
not-
beauty.
Sorry,
Beast
Beauty.
does
I'm
no
so sorry,
wrong.
Beauty.
Okay,
Beauty,
Beast is perfect.
Beauty. Beauty is just a dog doing dog things. Beauty smelled an ear and she ran right to that ear to
No, she
investigate.
didn't. She ran immediately past that ear and started.
Okay,
like,
all right. I'm just making
destroying
a joke.
property.
Beauty was just being a dog. Okay, Lynn is an innocent. She was just trying to get her dog. Parking attendant man, gas attendant man. Does he have a name? Does
Nope.
he have a name?
Not
Nope.
per IMDb at least.
Gas man. Gas man.
Gas man.
Gas man.
Gas
He
man
was
gives them a
gas
recommendation
man.
on a way to go. But you want to know something that's crazy?
They take it.
Big Bob has the fucking free will thing. You know that thing, free will, where you get to decide what you want to fucking do. And if some guy who seems really kind of weird and off, who lives in the middle of nowhere by himself, tells you to take an unmarked dirt road with a giant you have a giant Airstream trailer attached to your car, and you're gonna take a dirt road for miles and miles and miles through the desert. That is the stupidest thing I have ever heard. You're gonna get a flat. It's not gonna work out. This is not an all-terrain Airstream. That's not how it works. So it's on Big Bob. I'm so sorry. I love him. We love him because he's an actor that we all know. We also love him because we all agreed that we think he's hot and we don't know what to say.
I have no excuse.
But here's the thing. Would you fuck him? I'd fuck me.
You know what?
Because
mean-
he is Buffalo Bill in
Oh
Silence
my
of the Lamb.
God. Wow.
So that's
Yeah,
why
he
he
is.
is so
Not who I
fuckable.
thought that Rebecca was saying Buffalo Bill is.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
Okay.
So that's why
yeah,
we
well,
all
now-
want to fuck him.
I would not,
Okay.
to be clear, I do not want to fuck Big Bob, the character.
No,
No.
the man, the look of the man. Yes.
A
mustache.
Republican police officer grandfather
Ex-cop.
is simply not my type
No.
personally.
Mommy, I would say that I'm with you there.
But he is looking good. He is
just
looking good.
had an energy about him.
I'd be into it, but he's got to keep the hat on the whole time. He took the hat off, and I was like, oh no. I
The
just, like-
actor and the costume we can discuss. You know what I mean?
yeah,
The
yeah,
character
yeah.
of Big Bob, no,
No.
No. not for me.
But anyway, yeah, so he's sexy. He's got a great mustache. He's got an incredible horror repertoire in his actor career.
Mhm.
But he makes a big giant boo-boo that is not Beauty's fault.
Arguably, he is also Beauty's owner, and he did not train Beauty to be a dog who follows the rules. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
All
Those
right, I have a
dogs take off
question.
the second that they're let off the chain, okay?
it all comes back to Big Bob, baby.
Big Bob,
Okay.
baby.
I have a question.
Okay.
Yes.
So we all know that this movie came out in 2006, which was many, many years ago when
Uh-huh.
we were small babies. They have an Airstream, which in 2006 was like not super cool. Know what I mean? Like not great. But now, do you
Super
think
cool.
van life? Have all the van lifers watched this movie and we're
No,
like,
obviously
that
not.
Airstream is really fucking cool. Let's road trip everywhere. I think it's a clear reference to
Okay.
the van life phenomena.
My
Who
friend
the fuck
Brianna
would watch this movie and then say, let's go on a road trip?
My friend Brianna was just telling me about some unhinged influencers and the things that they do. And one she mentioned to me who I will not name, not just because I don't recall the name, but also because
You don't want to start beef with some influencers.
I don't want to start any
okay?
influencer beef.
Hey, maybe
And I
we do.
certainly, you feel free. I'm gonna stay out of it.
Get us in the headlines. Continue, I'm
But
so sorry.
one influencer she told me about certainly seemed like somebody who would get an Airstream and let their dogs run wild in the desert and potentially find themselves in such a sticky situation that they could have avoided by using a little common sense. A little common
Ooh.
sense. Just a small train your dogs, stay on the road. You know what I mean?
Stay on
Those
the
things
road?
feel, as someone who just drove through the desert, no dogs attached. You know what I mean? Just me, myself, and I. But certainly there were moments when I ventured off the highway. And in those moments, I thought to myself, this is a bad idea. And I eventually got back to the highway. Some things you have to do. You know what I mean? Sometimes you have to go see the Greater Green River Intergalactic Spaceport.
Sometimes you just have to put yourself at risk from running into cannibalistic mutants,
No,
you know?
no.
Sometimes it's worth the one single photo you're gonna get out of the adventure. You know what I mean? The moment.
totally.
But sometimes you have to limit that to like a 20-minute off the road kind of thing, because if you go any further off, you are now, even if you just like pop one tire, you know what I mean, you are so fucked out in the
You're fucked
desert. Because
City,
if
USA. It's
yeah
not gonna be good for you.
yeah, there was one little desert adventure, just a day trip I did, where I was out driving in the desert, and I was relatively near civilization, even just small towns, but civilization at all times. And I still was like, I see how someone could succumb to the heat and die so easily and immediately, because it was like hard to be outside for more than a few minutes at a time. And I did not bring any water with me, which was so stupid and dangerous, because I was like,
Chelsea!
I'm going to be in the car the whole time. I'm going to be outside for 5 minutes, which is true. But also, imagine if your car breaks down, you're fucked. You're
also,
so
like,
fucked.
you're a human. You don't bring a water bottle with you everywhere you go.
I unfortunately don't know how to excuse myself. I am chronically dehydrated. Should drink
Stop
more
saying
water,
it.
but I simply don't. I don't know what to
I
tell
simply
you.
cannot. You should bring around something
Here.
that weighs maybe 3 pounds and lug it with you everywhere you go, like I do. I think
This
my
one's-
right arm is more buff because of it.
This one's for you.
I'm
Oh,
gonna
wow. Look at that big, healthy sip.
Shall I ASMR it for you?
Oh, yeah. Did a little slurp,
Ooh,
Oh,
yeah.
This is now
That's
an
too much
ASMR
water, but-
podcast.
Now I'm gonna immediately go to sleep. Goodbye. Okay, but
okay,
also
cut
I'm
that
gonna
out.
add the desert into places just like the woods. Then maybe you should.
No. The desert is good. The desert is good. Don't come for the desert. Not to me.
By the end of this fucking podcast, however many years
She'll
it goes,
have drilled
Sydney
out
will
all
have-
the ecosystems.
Sydney will not be able to go anywhere except for her own home, and then she'll watch a movie about an intruder, and she'll be like, "I
The
can't be in my
Strangers.
home," and then what will happen?
I will just end it all. That'll be the
Oh,
day
God.
for me. I'll be like, okay, goodbye.
So-
Sydney, life's a risk, okay? Life's a risk, but also you don't go on the unmarked road.
But
when a
isn't there
crazy
a
person
whole?
You don't go too far down.
But
Sometimes
isn't
you
there a
have
whole
to.
poem about taking the road less traveled?
There's a second part of the poem
The
that says,
road
"But
less
sometimes
traveled."
The road less traveled will take you to the hills have eyes cannibal country and you'll die. So give it a second thought.
Also, arguably, there does need to be a road that exists for it to be the road less traveled.
Yes, that is not a real road. Anyway, The moral of the story is they got fucked real fast, okay? Also, like the spike strip, like coming out of nowhere was such a beautiful, like, oh fuck moment in this movie. Like, you know it's gonna get bad. It's about cannibals. Everybody knows about cannibals. You saw the first 5 minutes where those guys in the hazmat suits just get absolutely just banged upon every rock and also stabbed with a not a pitchfork. I don't know what that is. A pick. Some sort of mining apparatus. But like the car crash I was like sure they were gonna kill at least one of them in that car crash because they were going like 1,000 miles per hour into a giant boulder. I thought the car would blow up, but they had to wait until a little later in the film for that. But yeah, the movie we've established that Big Bob is an idiot, right? A little bit. We like him, but and he's done wrong things. But he's not the only person who does things that are wrong. Right off the bat, also his son, I guess, follows in his footsteps very closely. Because as soon as that car crash happens, and the doggies go missing, what's his name? Little Bob? Bobby goes out to find the doggos. Is this immediately, or did they find the dog once and bring them back and it runs out again and that's when it happens? Yeah, that's what it is, right?
I think Beauty might run off pretty immediately.
Yeah. So she runs off right after that, and then Bobby goes and finds her.
Yeah.
And then brings her back. And then they're out, like they're sitting around just like waiting because like Big Bob went one way back to the gas station and Doug went the other way to see if he could find something and just ends up in a crater. And Brenda walked back into the Airstream and let both of the dogs out. And so Bobby runs after them and
immediately finds Beauty has been gutted.
Yeah,
like literally gutted. And decides to not tell his family that the dog has been cut open with a knife.
Well, in Bobby's defense, he did fall off a cliff, so maybe he's a little woozy.
Sure. He's not in his best mind to be making good decisions. But I would argue we see him. It's not just that he doesn't mention it right away when he gets back. It's that even when there is cause to mention it to everyone, he is like actively holding it in and not mentioning it and like very much keeping it to himself for several minutes beyond the point that you should speak up and be like, no, now we all need to be prepared because it seems like a confrontation is imminent.
Yeah. It's just like there are facts that are unfortunate and sad and scary, but sometimes it's worth scaring your whole family, prepare them for what's to come. So maybe, they can get battle ready, but ain't nobody battle ready in this fucking movie. They just get absolutely, I don't know. I'm trying to think of a really exciting word right now and nothing's coming to mind. Bamboozled.
You get bamboozled.
They get bamboozled.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess it's not where I thought you were going, but bamboozled, not wrong.
Bada bing, bada boo, bada bamboozle.
Jesus fucking Christ. That's Sydney's new catchphrase, guys. She's going to say it every episode.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, okay. It's better than when she was trying to do segmentos every episode. So I mean, that's something.
Oh, I gotta bring that back.
No, Kelsey, why did you remind her?
I like your new Bubba Boozled thing. I think go with that. 2 catchphrases, that would be too many. It's hell. You want to keep it subtle with Bubba Boozled. Anyway, yeah, I mean, we were discussing last night who we thought was going to got first because we all watched it together. I thought Doug, which in hindsight now, considering what this movie is trying to communicate politically, I guess was a a bad choice. I do think that I'm not to say that the movie is like Doug is the only one who's right, because I don't think that's the case either. But I thought Doug was being presented as like this ineffectual, blah, 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 soft-handed man who sells cell phones or whatever,
he
and that
only
Big Bob was
cares about
Big Bob with
texting.
his guns. Yeah, I thought Big Bob was gonna accomplish more. No, Big Bob gets absolutely yeeted immediately, first to go. Just goes back to that gas station.
Gets his head just absolutely smashed into a window shield like many, many times.
Here's the
And
thing,
then
the mutant,
and then
the mutants have
crucified.
it right. Maybe that happened because they were filming right where the 10 Commandments were filming, and they were like, you know what, we will pay homage.
We'll just reuse this crucifix.
It's fine.
Oh yeah, this
But-
crucifix is just sitting here. We might as well.
But the mutants were smart. You always try and take the biggest one out first.
Yeah. Well,
The largest threat.
Yeah.
And they got him alone, you know? He did it
Exactly.
himself. He said, I'll go alone. And
Okay,
also Doug
which
go alone.
It's fucking stupid.
Scooby-Doo, no.
I'm sorry. Like, if I was Doug and Bob, I would have been like, we are not separating. I am not walking alone in the desert. But I think they both hated each other so much that they were like, we can't do this together.
Sure. And I get that and I understand, but I also feel like another of Big Bob's mistakes is really evaluating this situation. They seem to, I don't remember who said this actually, but they seem to come to the conclusion that a tire had exploded because of the heat or something, which feels like they didn't examine their tires and see that both front tires had been like ripped to shreds, you know? It just feels like a better understanding of the context of the situation they were in could have led them to be like, oh, this was a coordinated attack. And then Big Bob would have been on the offensive the whole time. And
yeah.
would that be better? I mean, arguably morals of who's blah blah blah, you know, worth discussing, etc. But
I think that here's the thing. Who, except for maybe us, because we've watched like 10,000 scary movies in our lives, like the average person isn't gonna be like, that was a spike strip that did my car in. Like, people aren't gonna think that they are being hunted by cannibals as their first thought, you know? They're gonna be like, oh, the tire just blew out.
Unlike us, who immediately will go to cannibalistic mutants.
Yeah. After
look,
this,
I've been very afraid my whole life. So I don't know what to tell you. I've had an overactive imagination always. Maybe that's just me. But I do think that if you looked at your car, you would be like, oh, both tires are fully fucked. That's weird. You know what I mean? You might not go, someone put down a spike strip because they're trying to kill my family. But I think you would be like, that's weird. And you'd think that Bob would be the kind of man who would know how to change a tire, which obviously it's kind of a moot point at that point because he hit the rock when they went off the road. And then, as he said, it was totaled. The whole frame is bent. So, like, you know, but I just feel like if he had taken a closer
look, he wouldn't be able to change it anyways because you probably only have one spare.
Yeah, he wouldn't.
I'm just saying, he seems like he's a detective. He's a detective, and he didn't detect anything.
He didn't detect a single cannibal. Oh my god! But also, I think the other part here is that Big Bob's pretty full of himself. You know, he's got that kind of like pompous air to him. And so he's like, I know exactly what to do. I'll go right back to that gas station. I'll have this fixed in 3 hours, honey. Like, that's like what he says. He's like, I can walk 8 miles in 2 hours. Like, okay, sure. He doesn't say 2 hours, but still, he's like very, very confident in his plan. And he's like, nothing is going to stop me. And it bites him in the butt. It bites him in the butt real hard. Bites him in the butt so hard that he gets lit on fire.
He sure does. Also, I do want to say, just like on the record really quickly, it is processing in my brain as we were having that crucifix discussion earlier that the 10 Commandments movie would be an Old Testament movie, not a New Testament movie, which is where Jesus lives.
Yeah. Great distinction there.
Which,
don't
technically,
So that's the
Bible,
issue.
so
Jesus
it's
wasn't
fine.
even around the whole time.
this
So-
is
Couldn't have helped.
more
Do
Jewish
we think-
representation for this film, though.
Oh, okay. Do we think that Jesus was now inspired by the crucifixion scene of the Hills Have Eyes remake?
The thing is, this still came out in 2006, so I'm not sure where you're going with that.
Listen, all I'm saying is assuming I don't know how, Jesus works, but I'm sure he could have looked into all futures, time and space, and was like,
Assuming
they're
time is
gonna
even a
make-
straight line and not a
Exactly.
flat circle.
what if that this he just saw this movie back like however long ago and was like, that's cool, I want to do something like that.
I'm not religious, but like the idea of Jesus watching the 2006 The Hills Have Eyes, like that makes
Compelling.
me extra mad. Makes me like him less. If he's gonna watch one horror movie and it's the fucking 2006 The Hills
Nobody's
Have
saying
Eyes.
it was just the one. Maybe this is the one that was the most memorable for him.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
I can't. Let's move on. But
He
okay,
could have watched Scream 3
Oh, he's definitely watched
let's
Scream
hope.
3.
Let's hope.
if he has
But-
good taste.
After the unfortunate crucifixion of our dear Big Bob, then comes the worst 10 to 15 minutes of cinema that have ever been created in the history of time, linear or not. Just a sequence of events that I hated so much in so many ways. And I don't even want to talk about it. And you guys can say whatever you want about it, but it was fucking terrible. And like, if you haven't seen this movie and you're going to watch it afterwards, as soon as you see Big Bob light up, close your eyes.
I think a little bit before Big
A little.
Bob lights up, like right around that time, because
I think the Brenda stuff is maybe happening at the same
It's
moment.
concurrent. Yes,
It's-
it is
Yeah.
concurrent.
two-
It's horrible.
basically the gist is there's two mutants. They breach the airstream. I don't understand how the mom can't hear Brenda making noise because
He
they're,
gets his hand over her mouth pretty much immediately.
still,
I think.
you would
but
think-
yeah,
you know what I mean?
And
Like
also
it's an
because there's
airstream.
a
It's not that
blaring
big.
bonfire that is her husband. That's
But this
right
is like
there.
right
too.
before,
Fire's very
right before, like Brenda gets, a hand over her mouth, and is making noise, and the mom is still in the trailer, so that doesn't. It's small. It's a small trailer. Okay, it's like an 87 Airstream. It's tiny, and basically the gist is Brenda is sexually assaulted by Lizard. You don't see anything too graphic, which is nice.
and leaves me room to be like, maybe it didn't go as far as they're implying that it did.
Yes. And one, lazy fucking writing. I hate when they put a sexual assault in just to like cause fucking trauma. You could have done something better, like be more fucking creative.
And
Yeah.
Sydney said this last night. Like, this is at the like crux, the height of the torture porn era of horror that I just can't fucking stand. I love horror, but there's like a whole like 4 years of horror that I do not touch because it's torture porny like this, and I don't think it's that creative. It's just like, oh yeah, torture is so scary. Yeah, torture's fucking scary. Okay. That's why they've been doing torture for the whole time the world's existed. Okay. But like, we don't like, it's not creative to just put that on screen. You gotta do more, Oh God. And this one was just so, it gets even more disturbing.
Oh, the
Yeah.
next
Very
the next
explicit.
scene for me because you see a little bit more is, and being like a woman, right? Like, so they finally hear Brenda like screaming, and so Lynn runs back into the trailer to like see
You don't
what's
have
up
to
with
say.
Brenda. No, I'll say it. I'll say it. Lizard is holding the baby and realizes that Lynn is obviously the baby's mom because she's got some big yabbos.
Her yabbos were, I made a joke about her yabbos as soon as Rebecca said that she was from Hocus Pocus, and I didn't expect the yabbos to be relevant, but they sure were.
They were incredibly relevant.
And
the new mom.
So the mutant breastfeeds off of her.
No,
It's literally the worst thing I've ever seen. I've seen some bad shit. That's not true.
I just
Last House on the Left was way worse, but that was pretty fucking bad.
Like-
I feel like I'm not against a torture porn movie necessarily. You know what I mean? It's hard to argue that House of Wax was anything else, and I'm obsessed with House of Wax, and the violence in House of Wax was graphic and memorable and disturbing, but and not quick. You know what I mean? Like they were extended scenes sometimes, especially when Dean is at the piano and he's getting peeled. That scene will horrify you for sure. But that movie is like fun, you know what I mean, and a
There's
delight.
nothing
And I
fun
don't think
here.
even the people who think that this movie is good would also say that it's fun. And I think I am open to sexual assault scenes in movies and ones that serve a purpose. And we talked a little bit about the rape revenge genre when we were talking about Ma. And I've seen movies in that genre and enjoyed them. And I think this movie was not about like exploiting that scene necessarily, but I guess my issue with it is also like the treatment of the villains in this movie, you know what I mean? Which I really have complicated feelings about. And whenever there is a disabled character in one of the movies we do, I always try and see like if any disabled people have talked about it. I rarely find much. But I think it is super fucked up in this movie that they take a disabled population and make them the villains in a way that doesn't allow for a lot of humanity for them, because
Yeah.
I mean, certainly it does for some. We've got characters like Ruby who are innocents and who are on the side of people like Big Bob's family who are trying to help them, and I think there's an argument for survival and like why is this the only method of survival? Sure, that's a discussion worth having, but if this is the method they choose, fair enough. But they have like made it this whole monstrous thing, which you can make the argument that like the nuclear testing from the government made them disabled from all of the like radiation and the fallout and the chemical genetic effects of that, and you can say that they were already an isolated population. They were already like living removed from the rest of society. They didn't want to leave their homes. But becoming disabled further isolated them from society, and that only the horrible people really survived that, I guess. You know what I mean? That like if you weren't willing to kill to survive, you didn't survive. And then those who are willing to kill become desensitized to killing, I guess. You know what I mean? But it always just feels like so cheap to me to be like, disabled people are the villains here. And I think it is so rarely done well. And I don't think it was done well here. And I think they
No.
went out of their way to be like, these people are monsters, and it's not unrelated to the fact that they're disabled. It just felt like weird and gross to me.
Yeah, no, it was like perverse in many ways, and like the way the characterization of the villains was a huge part of that. And then another
Yeah.
part for me that was just so fucked up is like the rape revenge story. I mean, not always the revenge is being enacted by the person who is sexually assaulted. Sometimes it's someone doing the revenge on their behalf or something like that. But usually there's usually the person who is having something horrible done to them, there's like some sort of moment for them to like get back at them or whatever. But this was like, I've
Brenda
seen
doesn't
the
have
worst.
that at all.
No, this was like an execution. This was like 15 minutes of everyone having like horrible things happen to them and being immediately executed afterwards. Like Lynn like has this horrifying thing that we see for way too long, so many seconds burned into my brain. And then she stabs Lizard in the leg and gets shot point blank in the fucking face. Like point blank in the fucking face. It's like, oh my God, it was so graphic. And then the poor mom has to watch her husband burned alive, and then she immediately gets shot in the stomach. It's just like their last moments were so horrifying, and then they're just executed. And it was just, oh God, made me feel terrible. I still feel terrible now. And it's
Right,
been
like
24 hours.
the women in this movie didn't like they were treated like really badly. And like like even Beauty, she got killed too. Like
Every
the
Beauty
women
got fridged. I'll say it again.
and like
Every woman.
nothing bad really happens to Bobby at all. Like
Well, he sees these horrifying
sees
traumas that will
things,
stick with him till the end of his life.
but like
yeah.
nothing, know what I mean? Like nothing happens
Yeah, no, I know what you mean.
to him. And then Doug goes through a lot of shit, which I do want to talk about.
Ever letting shit beat out of him multiple times.
But he also has the opportunity to be like badass motherfucker in it as well. Where
Yeah,
like
and
Deborah
he
doesn't get that
survives.
opportunity. Ethel certainly doesn't, because she
Who's
dies
Deborah?
right away. Or what's her name? Brenda.
Brenda.
Brenda. So sorry. I did a little anagram kind of thing there, even though that's not
Monica
even
loves
right.
improv, you know?
I love improv. So I just thought I'd mix it up a little bit. But yeah, like Brenda doesn't get she gets one chance to fuck someone up after all the horrible things that happened to her. And she didn't even get to kill Lizard, which like I wish she got to kill Lizard. And then so yeah, every single woman in the family gets fucked up, including the girl dog. And also the lovely little Ruby, our little baby girl who's trying to save the day, she also gets fucking killed. She has to sacrifice herself. Fuck.
I don't know. I think this movie would have been better if Bobby, Brenda, and Doug like all went off in search of baby Catherine, who after Lizard kills
her mom.
Yeah, her mom and her grandma
and her grandpa.
Then she gets abducted, but she's young. She won't remember. And
hope so. Oh,
but
gosh.
like I think it would have been a more interesting story to see like all of them like go and like seek out these mutants instead of just Doug and Beast go off. Doug gets to be a badass and the other two are just kind of like, okay, I guess we're here. And then the only thing that they get to do is they blow up the Airstream.
Yeah, heirloom.
It's an heirloom. It's vintage, and it's like all of their food, all of their stuff. They still don't have a car. Where are they gonna go?
No shelter.
They set up like a little warning system with like the baby rattle and some fishing wire that they set up, and I thought that was pretty clever. But there's really no reason for them to stay there as sitting ducks unless someone is like wounded. You know what I mean? Like it would make more sense if someone was like wounded and needed to be stationary, and so they had to be like defending their home turf instead of sticking together as a group. It just felt like also their blowing the trailer up plan didn't even accomplish anything really.
Yeah.
And it honestly didn't make
Dutch
any
didn't even
sense
die.
at all.
No!
Yeah, he didn't even fucking die. He had to get picked in the head by
And that was Papa Jupiter.
Brenda. I almost said Deborah again.
But I think this movie could have, know what I mean? Like, we could have seen Brenda, you know, like be really scared about what just happened to her, but like work through it and like murk some of these people that wronged her.
A family bonding experience. It literally went from like, camping movie to horrible execution of everyone. And then it turned into like, I'm Doug and this is me in Rambo or something. And he's just like, was on a solo journey, like freaking like Keanu Reevesing it, John Wick style, with all of these mutant people. And it's just, yeah, I mean, that part of it was badass. I mean, I just wish that Doug wasn't so, like a little bit annoying. I just didn't like him because the way he treated Lynn. So I was like, I'm writing him off. And then I was like, oh, so now he's going to be our hero. This doesn't make me feel that good either. Cause
right. That was the thing. You didn't want to root for Doug. He was kind of a dick and he was like pervy to Brenda and just like,
nope.
But
no
it
redeeming
is
women's
nice
stories here. It's very sad.
A Democrat win, you know?
Yeah, it's great to see a Democrat win.
It's
also,
nice.
It was good to see him find his inner strength, you know? Like, did I ever expect him to be able to be angry or tough enough to blow off a plexiglass top of a case, you know? Like
covered in dead body parts?
Covered in dead body, but you know, I feel like enough dead body parts around you could motivate you to do anything, you know? That's like the adrenaline, I can lift a car kind of moment. And I did really love his fight scene with, which guy is it? The very tall guy.
Pluto.
Oh, I do. I love when he begs for his life. You know what I mean?
And he's like, haha, psych.
That was great. That was like some emotional manipulation. He was like, please don't kill me. And Pluto's like, ha 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 ha. The villain always does that, you know?
So I love.
They get too cocky.
I like that. I will say I do like that whole scene because that's when we see Big Brain. And that's how we know Big Brain was the one telling like all the people like, oh, Jupiter's gonna come back. I told you not to leave anybody alive. Jupiter will come back and finish them. Like he is the big brain and like he's probably the smartest one there
behind the operation.
But he also is like, your people did this to us and we, you know, now we feel just in murdering you. And you're just like, oh, whatever. But it is really cool. I really had a great time watching Doug see, like, as he's walking to see Big Brain, he sees Big Bob's burnt corpse with a flag sticking in his head, which is from their car. And then in the fight scene, he takes this flag from the burnt corpse of Big Bob and like shoves it through Pluto, aka the Kool-Aid Man, because he keeps bursting through walls and you never know which wall he's gonna burst through. It's not the one you think it is.
Yeah. I was like, Doug's like all stoked that he pushed that huge fucking porcelain tub in front of the door. I was like, honey, you saw him go through 3 walls already. Why do you think that that's going to do anything?
That's where he's going to show up at. You're wrong.
Also, he has a giant axe and the porcelain tub only covers like 2 feet of the bottom of the door. He can just axe down the fucking top of the door, even if he wasn't going to Kool-Aid it, you know? I mostly really like that scene. Though not that scene in particular, but that whole section of the movie, because that's when you get to see what I think is a really cool set decoration part of this film. Yeah, because like
that's the best part.
That part. Honestly, I don't know the history of this as well, but like these these like fake towns that they would do the nuclear tests on, where they literally would put these mannequins in, and they had all the like 1950s decor. I was like, oh God, I want those chairs. Too bad they're covered in radioactive fallout. Like, fuck. But like, yeah, do you guys know more about the history of that? I don't, but I've
No,
always
but I
been intrigued by
will
the
be
aesthetic.
going down a rabbit hole with this, looking into it more.
Yeah, I mean, I love ruins. I love abandoned places. That is extremely my shit. So I was small obsessed with that whole moment. Definitely the highlight of the film for me. I think the purpose is obviously they can like measure with their little Geiger counters like the level of radiation in places, so maybe they're seeing like how far away from a town they can get that's dangerous. I think the implication is that the actual bombs were dropped in that like crater where Doug finds all of the cars, so not actually in the town itself.
Yeah.
And they're measuring like how far away is okay, is like safe to go, or like the level of danger, you know what I mean, just to be informed.
See how freeded those mannequin kids on the swings get, just to see, like, God, so nukes are fucked up.
Yeah.
Nuclear shit is like so fascinating to me. Like, it could be so good where we have like nuclear energy and like all this stuff, and then like one wrong thing and it's like a disaster. This is so bad. And you're just like,
generations of people are fucked, you know, like it doesn't just, it's not, they're like, oh, we'll stop the war with this bomb, and just like, oh, cool. And then you started like a war like of science and nature for the next like 500 years with the nuclear fallout. So like, oh, cool.
okay,
good idea. Fixed it.
Or just
yeah,
like,
it's actually just a small podcast shout out. I was listening to one of the Keep It Weird cast episodes over my road trip, and they were talking about Chernobyl on like a science episode that they did recently, and how the like nuclear material in there is like reacting again or whatever, and it's gonna be like even longer before they can address it, and I didn't memorize that, so people can go find it themselves if they'd like to hear more. But yeah, I'm very fascinated by that. I'm very fascinated by Chernobyl, which wasn't even like a nuclear attack, you know what I mean? It was just like science gone wrong, and that's terrible. And I've seen Chernobyl Diaries with Jesse McCartney, and that movie kind of has some of the similar issues as this movie does, because
Jesse McCartney's in that.
Jesse McCartney is in that movie. I did see it in theaters.
We should talk about that movie, because I remember having a good time, maybe only because Jesse McCartney was in it.
I would love to see Jesse McCartney do some acting again, but like, again, I'm so excited for another like fucked up villain trope the same as this. So that's gonna be wonderful. Let's wait a few months before we go back to a nuclear movie. I think I'm gonna need some time away.
No, guys, this is gonna be our new theme month. Nuclear.
We're doing nuclear month.
Love it. Yeah, no.
July. And now we're unveiling Nuclear July. Next up is Chernobyl Diaries. And then we're going to review the entire HBO Chernobyl series. And then we're going to review, I don't even fucking know if there's another one.
The Hills Have Eyes from the 70s and The Hills Have Eyes 2.
Yeah. Actually, it's going to be
which presumably does that?
The Hills Have Eyes 2, The Hills Have Eyes the original, and then Chernobyl Diaries. That's the lineup.
Sydney, have you seen The Hills Have Eyes 2?
I have not seen The Hills Have Eyes 2. I like vaguely know the premise of it.
Okay.
Which is like,
oh, ew. I'm looking at the Wikipedia now and I'm already bailing on it. I assumed that it was going to
be like a military
right where this
thing.
movie left off. No. Completely different film.
Yeah. I solemnly swear. Does anyone have a Bible? I don't. Pretend.
I've got a LaCroix.
I have the film about the 10 Commandments that they filmed in Morocco right next to this film.
Okay, wait,
Will that work?
Hold on. I have my computer on a series of books. I'm going to swear on the Mastering Bitcoin book. I got my
option was better.
Got my hand on it. I solemnly swear that I will never fucking watch The Hills Have Eyes 2 in my life, nor will I ever, and I will not cover it on this podcast, nor will I ever cover the original on this podcast with you, unless you show me some evidence that it's not as fucked up as this one. But Hills Have Eyes 2, never in my life, and that's a promise.
I'll tell you, the violence in this one is a lot more than the violence in the 1970s one. When I was looking up
Yes.
reviews and stuff,
I
that
would
was the main
imagine.
difference that I saw, was that the 70s one, like a lot of 70s horror movies, is like relatively bloodless in comparison to today's modern horror fare, especially the horror of the early aughts.
Okay, great. Can you promise me that there's no more breastfeeding in that one either? Because I
can't make that
Can't
promise at
have
this
that again.
time.
Okay,
but
well,
I
I'm not
want-
gonna watch it. So
I'm reading the plot of the original one, and
Uh-huh.
the baby daughter's name is Katie. Why did they change it to Catherine? Everybody else's names is exactly the same, except for the daughter, whose name was
Katie-
Katie.
Katie's a nickname for Catherine.
But why make that like distinction?
they made everyone have old people names. Catherine's not an old person name, but it's more distinguished than Katie. That's
Well,
true. They
all
want
like
to be more
Bob
on the
and
same
Ethel
level
and
as
Bobby
Ethel,
and
you
Brenda,
know?
like all of those are the original
That's
70s
true.
movies, so that makes sense. Like they're the original 70 name, like 1970s names.
I don't know. Like
So it
bringing
makes
it to
sense.
Hello, Wes Craven?
the
That's me calling Wes Craven on my spoon.
I think you would need a
Oh,
Ouija
cool.
board to get a hold of good
Yeah.
old Wes there.
You don't know the
How did-
capabilities of my spoon. And once more, time, not necessarily linear, Sydney. Wow, so small minded.
That is fair. But I would like to just take like a brief moment to
Mhm.
talk about how hot Doug looks covered in blood.
Yeah,
He gets progressively hotter through
It's
this
true.
movie.
he sure
And
does.
He
It's true.
truly does. And then
Because I was like not hot at the beginning. I was like Big Bob hot, Doug not hot.
not hot.
But then, okay, he gets. I think it's just because he had those glasses and they were not it. The glasses were not it. The haircut could have been better. But then he gets bloody, and when he has blood on him, he looks like Jim Sturgis to me. And I have a big thing for Across the Universe and 21, and so I was very into that. But then there's a point where he gets so bloody that he's not hot anymore for me. And I know that Sydney probably doesn't relate, but there was like a beautiful moment. I was like the perfect amount of blood. And then it tips over that where he just is a completely red man. He is completely doused in entire. You can't see much of him at all because there's so much blood. And that's why I was like, all right, we've reached critical mass.
No, I was like, there could be more blood. He could be bloodier. He could.
He could be like producing
bloodier.
his own personal geyser of blood. Yeah, that's
yes,
true.
like it would have
A
done
Johnny Depp
something for
style
me.
geyser.
Exactly. Also, totally unrelated to this, but the gas man's name is Fred.
Ah,
So-
IMDb led me astray on whether or not he had a name.
You gotta go to the
Sure.
Wikipedia.
I was sure it was Gas Man. I was sure that was his born name. Gas is the first name. Man is the last name. But I learned something today. Is there anything else about this movie that you wanted to talk about before we go on to our segments?
Yes.
Ooh.
You
what
go
is yours,
What is it?
Chelsea?
Please.
I just want to talk about how this is a beast revenge film.
Yes.
Oh, I thought you were being like, this film is Beast. And I was like, go
No.
on.
No, Beast the dog. This is his revenge film for the
For
death
beauty.
of either his sister and or girlfriend, because you never know with dogs.
And girlfriend. Stop it.
And or
You never know with dogs.
because sometimes you get them and you're like, I bought that, like I got them and they're brother and sisters. Or and sometimes you can get them and be like, this is your boyfriend. Like, it's all depending on what you think they are.
So Beast, yeah, Beast does all this cool badass stuff. Tell me more about it.
Beast is the best. He kills one of the things. He brings back an arm, and then he saves Doug multiple times, like just comes out of nowhere. Boom. I'm like, Beast, this movie would be nothing without you.
No, it's true. That was like one of the only times I felt joy is when Beast was on camera, on screen. Thank God.
Beast deserved an Oscar.
Truly.
I wonder what the name of the dog was who played Beast.
This is 2 movies in a row where we have badass dog actors. We had Nanook and now Beast.
Can you believe that Beast is not part of the cast on IMDb? That's so rude.
That
He
shows
should
me
be
that there's something
main bill.
fucked with the production of this film as well. They're not giving credit where credit is due. And that's frankly unacceptable. Not the most unacceptable thing about the film, though. Chelsea, what was the other thing you wanted to bring up?
Just something else about the horrible treatment of disabled people in this film. This was a quote from one of the actors. And I'm not gonna say who because it doesn't matter, but I think hopefully this was just one person's opinion and not necessarily a representative of the attitudes of the film as a whole, but frankly I think probably it is. But they said every day, this is like a kudos to the makeup artist, which, you know, the makeup was incredible and I'm pretty sure it won an award for it and like fully deserving. And part of that is because they did, per IMDb at least, like pick real conditions and deformities that people have had. And we saw the photos in the beginning and those were all people who had been not affected by nuclear radiation, but had been affected by Agent Orange in Vietnam. But they picked like real deformities, like real health issues that people have from nuclear radiation on purpose. They like did the research. And then the quote that someone said is, every day these amazing artists took more than 3 hours to transform me into something that could only be found in a nightmare, which is like the crux of the issue for me is that it seems like a little bit the movie is trying to be like, nukes are bad and we bought this problem on ourselves and we created these monsters, but they're very much still being like, these people are monsters, like, which you know, they're going out of their way to make characters like Papa Jupiter and Lizard and etc. be horrible people and be killers, and not just killers to survive, but enjoying like wreaking violence on other people and enjoying harming other people and enjoying terrorizing other people, which is its own separate issue. But I think it is fucked that a large part of the horror of this movie is like that they are visibly disabled, especially when those disabilities are like based on real disabilities that real people have.
Yeah. Oh my God. That quote is so fucked up. Something that could only come out of a nightmare. No, this whole movie is supposed to be based in like reality, like you were just saying, like the freaking title card of the movie where they show actual photos of actual like deformities that came out of, you know, nuclear fallout that affected these people, you know? It's that just makes me so irate. They thought they were being so cool with that little sound bite, and they're being so fucked up. It's the 2006 of it all, but that shit is still rampant today.
So I'm on the 1977 The Hills Have Eyes Wikipedia page, and there's like a thing on it, and it says political themes, because we were always like, okay, there's some kind of political message here, but like don't really know if they're getting it across well. And it said, Craven has said that the film expresses rage against American culture and the bourgeoisie, where the Carters represent the bourgeoisie family, and the film's cannibals can be understood as representing any number of oppressed, embattled, and downtrodden minority, social, ethnic groups, including indigenous people of the Americas, African Americans, hillbillies, and the Viet Cong.
I think that message, yeah, and I think the politics
original one
were a little bit adapted and changed for the remake, and certainly in a post 9/11 world, your view of American militarism is going to be different.
Mhm.
But I also think that message, both in I haven't seen the original, so I can only speak in lens of this one. I think that message would have been communicated more clearly if we had more adults who are like violence neutral instead of actively going out of their way to be horrible to women in unspeakable ways.
Yeah.
You kind of have one guy in the trailer who I don't know what it was implied was going on with him and Brenda before Lizard showed up and was like, let me
That's
escalate this
Pluto.
situation. But it still already was like not good, but not as bad. And I think maybe you could make the argument that Pluto does not necessarily have the faculties to appreciate the terror that he was causing. Maybe, I don't know. There was the way his character was handled was different than the way that Lizard's character was handled, but to only paint the children as innocents to me kind of implies that like they may have all started as innocent children, but they will all grow up into these like horrible villains, you know what I mean? And
which is like not the right message.
Yeah.
You wanna
No,
be
not
sending.
at all.
It's the same thing with all of the movies where we talk about like mental health being demonized and stuff like that. It's one of those things where it's like, sure, do people maybe enact violence because of these reasons, but certainly not all people with these reasons enact violence. And I don't think that this movie really nailed that. You know what I mean? Like, if the people living in the hills are meant to represent oppressed people, I don't think it is a very sympathetic portrayal.
No. Now I want to watch the original one.
Okay, I'll probably watch the original one, but Hills Have Eyes 2? Fuck no, hell no. I stay with my solemn swear.
What's going to happen to your relationship with Bitcoin now that you've gone back on that swear?
Oh no, I'll have to sell all of my Bitcoin. I don't fucking have Bitcoin. This is James's book. I don't have that kind of shit. Anyway, just a shit on Bitcoin.
Are we ready to get into our segmentos?
Yeah, and I've got a good one whenever it comes up. But let me know where we start, because I always forget that we have an order, and apparently we have an order.
How could it be gayer?
Oh, okay, then I'm ready.
Okay.
I don't want it to get gayer because I don't want any queer people to go through this.
Sure. My first thought after we watched this movie was that this is perhaps the straightest movie that we've watched. Yeah, and I do think that's true. But also,
we're coming out with a stark contrast out of Pride Month. Jesus fucking Christ!
All right.
The
they
gay
said
shit's
you
over.
had enough gay. Move on.
It's over now.
Like it's like we're corporations immediately after Pride. We're like, no.
You guys had your little month, and you need to wrap it up now.
It's over. The straights are back.
Put it away. Anyway. I think that Doug is bisexual.
Yes.
I think they never said it. There's not anything necessarily that makes me think that, but there's not anything that disputes it. And I also think Doug being a gun-hating, bisexual, cell phone salesman Democrat, the bisexual of it all, would just further alienate him from Big Bob. And so that feels right to me in my heart. You know what I mean?
I could see that.
And also a bisexual Jewish action hero king. Wow.
Here's the thing, instead of where he does the pervy look at Brenda, he could have given that look to Bobby.
Maybe he doesn't have to be pervy to anybody.
Get rid of the pervy look completely. And maybe like also if he had treated his wife well, like in the 5 seconds where they were together in the film, that would have been cool too.
But the air conditioning was broken. Maybe he's cranky. I'd be cranky. I would be nicer to my wife, but she's a Republican.
She just gave birth. Okay.
What if the reason him and Big Bob don't like each other so much is because there's secret sexual tension there?
Oh my God.
They're both bisexual.
A bisexual Big Bob is like something that I wouldn't expect, and that would drive me wild. So
Big
that's
Bob
canon
is like
now.
Big Bob is like one of those parents who, when you come out to them, they're like, "We're all attracted to the same gender, but we choose to be straight because that's the American way." And
Of
he's
course,
like,
I
"I'm
thought about
straight,
fucking
and
men.
it's a choice."
I did it in college.
yeah.
Like what?
And
There
so
were a
you're
few,
just like, "Oh,
maybe
Big Bob,
10, 20
bisexual."
times in college, but I don't even remember that now. Big
Yes,
Bob.
I know it's a choice because I fucked a man and then I chose to marry your mother instead. And it's just like,
And I think about him every day. Big
okay,
Bob.
I think Big Bob Doug confirmed bisexual man. Confirmed bisexual man.
Yes.
Down. That makes me like this movie a little bit more. Still never gonna watch it again. Still never gonna speak about it again after this hour is over.
Yeah.
Okay. Where would our boy Maddie Lily be in this film? And my thing that I have to say about it is no. Don't let him be in the movie. I don't want him to have to go through this, even in an acting scenario. But also
Okay,
he could have been Doug.
Yeah, obviously Doug.
He could be Doug. He could be, what'd you say his name is? Fred, Mr. Gas Station Man. I think he'd be a great Mr. Gas Station Man. I do not want to see him play any of the mutants. That's
He
no,
could
thank
have
you.
been Goggle.
No thanks.
Also, just so you guys know, when when Chelsea like pauses a little bit sometimes before saying a word, she's doing scare quotes, but you as the listener cannot tell.
We're recording these now, and so I just assume somehow they'll
I'm not gonna
get my vibes.
I'm not gonna make this part the video that we put on this. On
This
our
is not
post.
the entertaining little 1 minute clip
No,
that you pulled.
Unfortunately, I'm not pulling this one.
You said there will be no discussions of this movie on social media.
None.
No. I'll find something. We gotta said something funny in the last 2 hours.
Yeah, I mean, I'll try to be more clear with my scare quotes going forward, and I'll do a little quote unquote, but mainly just listen for the pause, I guess. Don't know what to tell you.
You can hear the wink, you can hear the wink
Yes.
of it all.
When I say mutants in this film, I say it in the way that the film discusses them, not in a way that reflects my personal opinions of the way that disabled people are treated in this film, which I feel that I have made clear at this point.
Yeah. You've made that very clear. And yeah, Matthew Lillard, I still don't want him to be in it. I'm thinking of that, and it would have made it so much more disturbing for me.
He could be one of the scientists in the beginning, maybe in the hazmat suits.
That's true. If one of them you get to see their face for 5 seconds, because what's the point of having it in there if I don't get to see his cute little punum?
He could be that
I
original
still would
guy
like
that
him as
escapes
Doug.
and is like, "Help me," to the scientists, and then
Oh yeah, that would be a nice little cameo. I still think he
he's
would
here
have done
just
a
for a
good
moment,
Doug.
just a breath. He would be a great Doug. He would be a
Yeah,
great
he'd be a great
Doug.
Doug. He could have the long hair too. We saw him as Shaggy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And then 2006, wasn't Monsters Unleashed released around that time? So they're contemporaries.
Was it that far between the first and the second Scooby-Doo movie?
Or was it 2003?
I think it was like 2003 or 4.
That's only a
still.
couple years past,
But still.
Okay.
So we've done Gare, Matthew Lilly,
dumb bitch. And we already had this conversation at the beginning pretty much, but I'm still on the Big Bob train, baby. It's him.
Yeah, it's definitely Big Bob.
It is definitely Big Bob, but I do think Bobby himself deserves a nomination just because I feel that I don't want to give him any responsibility for what happened, but I feel he could have spoken up sooner, and perhaps they would have been at least
prepared more,
slightly more prepared. You know what I mean? They could have like braced themselves.
Yeah, they wouldn't have just been like meandering around and separating, and like Doug would have like maybe looked to his right when he ran inside to grab the freaking fire extinguisher. As if he had just looked to his right, he would have saved Brenda from that horrible situation with Pluto, but he was all Big Bob all the time. You just have to look out for everyone in the pack. You
Because
don't separate. You stay together when you know you're about to be hunted down to death by cannibals.
But I just also want to say real quick, not to go back to Could It Be Gayer, but being all Bob all the time, that plays into what we were just saying. I'm just saying. It is canon
All
now.
the facts are there.
It is
All the
canon
facts are
now.
there.
The signs.
Yeah, so sorry, Big Bob.
But it is Big Bob. Yeah, it's
you.
Big Bob.
It's you.
It
It's
is
you
Big
and your
Bob.
big, beautiful Bob mustache.
Could have
So
just stayed on the road.
I love roads that are paved. Personally,
Personally.
I love interstates.
I
Okay,
love the
like
interstate.
that.
I love the interstate. Also, just saying from a perspective that is unnecessary to even state, if they had stayed on the interstate, they could have seen maybe the world's largest bar of soap. I was gonna say ball of yarn and then bottle of wine almost came out of my mouth, and then I said bar of soap instead.
But they could have seen many large things.
Could have been
And
there.
as somebody who has driven through New Mexico before, you could see plenty of desert from the interstate.
Yes.
The highways are very deserted. As someone who drove through Utah, Arizona, Nevada very recently, yeah, you get plenty of desert
Right?
just
You get
hanging in your
plenty
car
of
on
desert.
the major interstates.
Yep.
Because they get small out there. They get small.
Big Bob.
Anyway.
So that leads us to our final segment, and that is knives out of fives. Oh, can't wait to see how we rate this one. Chelsea, set the scene.
This scene is set by this movie having 6.4 out of 10 on IMDb. And on Rotten Tomatoes, it has 52% rotten from critics and 58% rotten from audiences. So failing scores on Rotten Tomatoes and a 6.4, which is just slightly better than failing on IMDb.
Didn't House of Wax have like 1%? It's not true. They had like 30% or something. It's just like,
but that was wrong. They were wrong.
No, I know.
And they only did that
so
because
this
Paris
is also
Hilton.
wrong.
This is also wrong, but in a too high.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. This is rated significantly higher than it should be. I mean, I guess I'm happy for people who saw this movie and didn't walk away like retching, crying into the night, staying up for hours because you could not sleep because you were so worked up. That was me last night. Yeah, I could not fall asleep for like hours. Not because I was scared, because I was irate. But yeah, I guess I'll go first because I don't care what you guys rate it, because I'm gonna rate it as shitty as I want to. Usually I try to find some middle ground, but I hated this movie. I'm glad that we covered it because I had a good time talking to you guys about it, and I'm sorry that I texted you guys like 20 times during the movie, separate from our spooky chat, to be like, yeah, we don't even have to do an episode for 4th of July if this is what we're covering. We could just skip a week. We could just not do anything. We could just not do it at all ever one time. Because it's like it was worth talking about. But that said, I mean, we've been over it. It was just bleak. It was just bleak. It was just bleak. And there's not enough cool Doug Rambo shit at the end to redeem it, you know? It's just even the very end of this movie, which like, okay, good for them, whatever. Like finally Doug and Brenda, not Deborah, and Bobby are back together with little baby Katie, Catherine, whatever the fuck her name is. And you're like, oh yeah, wow, maybe they won't die, or maybe they still will because they don't have any water and they have to walk 8 miles
And they're
to
in
the
the
nearest gas
desert.
station in the middle of the desert, and they might die from exposure. But if that's not even enough for you, then of course they do another zoop binocular shot, and there are more eyes in these goddamn hills. And so, will the torture ever end? I guess not. So
that should have been the sequel's name. More eyes in the goddamn hills.
Yeah, so it starts bleak. It doesn't start that bleak. No, it starts bleak. It starts bleak. It stays bleak. It continues to be bleak, and then it ends bleak. And I had a bleak time, and I've not felt this mad in a movie in a long time. And let me tell you, it's not because I just can't handle violence or I can't handle fucked up shit. I've seen a lot of fucked up movies, but there's like a purpose to it. That's well thought out, and it's like says something. This movie doesn't know what it's trying to say. It thinks it does, but it's saying fucked up shit at the end of the day. And so for me, I'm going to give this like a fucking 1.1 repeating. I know that like technically it's better than that, but this is personal spite, and I got beef with this shit, and it's getting a 1. I wish I could give it I guess I could give it a 0. Should I give it a 0? No, I felt a little. I liked Beast. I'm giving it a 1.1111. I really almost would change it to 0. Anyway, who's feeling less biased and wants to talk about their thoughts?
Okay. I'll give this a 2.5.
Oh, generous.
I there was a reason why I have only seen this movie once, and it was forever ago, literally like 14 years ago. I don't have to see it again. The trailer scene was incredibly fucked up. But I kind of like that extreme violence. I don't know, there's a weird nostalgia factor because I grew up, in the middle of that like weird torture porny, like that's kind of, it was either like
I grew up with torture porn.
I grew up with the torture porn, so it was like either ghosts, weird freaky ghosts, or like really aggressively violent horror movies. And so I wish the plot had so much more potential. If they were going to do a remake, like they could have like really made it into a more modern approach to it, where they involved Brenda should have just done more. I think Brenda deserved that for everything that she went through. Brenda deserved to kill everybody.
I would have loved the movie if it had been Brenda who fucking yeeted everybody in the end and had the
Right?
Rambo moment.
Yeah,
That's my niece. Yeah.
yeah, like I think Brenda had more of a motivation than Doug. Know what I mean? Like it's still her niece, like it's her sister's baby who's now dead.
Her
Know what I
mother is
mean?
dead.
Like, yeah. So I think Brenda should have had more shine. I think if they would have just polished that up a little bit more, it would have been a way better movie.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I read a bunch of different reviews, and some were like, this movie is not sure what it's saying politically, and then some are like, the political stylings of this movie are scathing and on point. Personally, I think, there's that moment near the end where Big Brain is like, your people asked our families to leave the towns and you destroyed our homes. We went into the mines, you set off your bombs and turned everything to ashes. You made us what we've become. Boom, boom, boom. And like, sure, but it also feels like when that is delivered to Doug and Doug is just being like, where's my baby? It's like ineffectual, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it doesn't actually force any real reckoning with the responsibility that the American government played in this movie. And maybe that's because all of the Republican characters who are like, yay, America, are like not part of that scene. Although arguably I would say just the one mention of like Doug's a Democrat, he doesn't believe in guns, is like not really enough even to portray the family as like any other political ideology. And I think, I was curious to see after that line, like with them being like, Doug's a Democrat, he doesn't believe in guns, like if he was going to get through the movie without using a gun. He does not. He does use a gun. And so I am interested and not sure what the messaging is surrounding that, unless it's to say, as Sydney pointed out when we were watching the movie last night, like the president in charge who was the president while the Manhattan Project was like being developed was a Democrat, and like I'm pretty sure the president who was in charge like when we set off the atom bomb also a Democrat. You know what I mean? So it could have something to say about that also, and how both American mainstream parties are very similar, and have their own reckoning to do, and like you have to get your hands a little dirty for some real revolution or whatever. But I don't know. I'm not confident that that's
Yeah.
what this. You know what I mean?
That was the vibe. I feel like they're doing it real subtle.
Yeah, because the thing is, the "you made us this way" stabbed with an American flag is like very over the top, and then it's also still kind of that own, like that's the one moment where they really interject it in a really straightforward way, and so I feel like it is hard to say that that was like a defining theme of the movie. That was a point really clearly made. I think it's interesting that they were trying to say something. Not sure what it is, other than, again, nukes are bad, which, I'm on board with, but again, doesn't feel like that. Maybe I'm in a liberal bubble. Doesn't feel like that controversial of a statement. So to me, this movie, I didn't have a fun time. You know what I mean? I didn't really enjoy watching it. I guess I'm glad that Doug had his turn at the end. And as soon as they were like, Doug's Jewish, I was like, oh, I do like him more now than I did a moment ago. But not a lot of redeeming factors for me here. I think I'm also gonna give it like I don't want to quite give it a 1, because I think it was like a well acted movie, you know what I mean?
True.
I don't know. I'm gonna give it like a 1.5, maybe. You know what I mean? It just didn't really do it.
Yeah.
There's nothing here for me other than like the ruins of the nuclear village.
Yep.
That was what I was interested in, and frankly, we could have gotten more.
Frankly, the whole thing could have been set in that, and that would have been fucking dope. They're like trying to figure out, is it a mannequin or a person? This is just
very yeah, I was gonna say, I just want to watch
see
House
more
of
of the
Wax again.
mines.
I just wanted it to be House of Wax.
I want to see more of the mines.
I would like to see more of the mines. I would like to see more of Mr. Gas Station Attendant Fred and how he came to be in this position. But I will say one IMDb trivia piece. We were a little light on IMDb trivia this episode, so I'm just going to share a couple of interesting moments before we sign off.
Time for facts.
But one of them, yeah, true. One of the IMDb trivia pieces was like, they just found that mine in Morocco, which, like, can you imagine you are filming a horror movie, you're in Morocco, you find a random mine, and you're like, let's explore it. Isn't there someone on the cast and crew who's going to be like, hey guys, just a reminder, we are filming a horror movie, and I'm pretty sure I've seen one just like this where it goes wrong. You're going to just explore the mine? Are you sure?
Let's have a live action My Bloody Valentine. Sounds perfect.
Oh God, talk about one of my favorite movies.
Oh yeah, I wish we had been talking about that one.
Yeah, I mean, I do think it's interesting that we tried to skip a 4th of July movie since the 4th of July had passed, and we still ended up with a movie that was very much like about the American government and politics, etc.
That was the whole point, baby.
America,
Hey,
we did it on purpose. Yeah, no, we didn't. But also another interesting trivia piece: the actress who played Big Mama was bald, and she agreed to shave her head for the price of $1,000, which didn't give me a little interesting thought of like, how much is your hair worth to you, and how long does it take you to grow that hair, and how do you put a price on that? But also $1,000,
so much more than that.
Compelling. $1,000 is compelling.
I would need so much more than that, because like one wig is like $800, and I would need multiple wigs. My hair grows so slow.
Same.
Yeah.
But also everybody on TikTok is shaving their heads these days, and I am curious.
Not me. I got too many bumps in my head from being dropped as a child. Like, I would not look cute bald.
I recently put my hair back super, super tight, and then I put on a bald cap. Oh, because I was putting on a wig. I was like, why did I do this? I was wearing a wig cap, and I looked at myself in the mirror, and I was like, oh my God, my head is actually very small for my tall body. So we won't be shaving Monica's head.
Interesting. Okay, good to know.
Yep.
Anyway, another trivia piece is that the original 1970s movie was filmed in Victorville, California, which I recently drove through. And the reason they could not return is because there were like condominiums that went up and stuff like that in Victorville. And you know, I still think there's plenty of desert in the United States that would possibly allow for this kind of location shooting. I guess they couldn't find it though, because that's why they went to Morocco. But it is interesting. Victorville very much is not a middle of the nowhere in the same way that it used to be.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I stopped in Victorville. And I got a Subway sandwich. So that just goes to show you.
Yum. And on that note, we conclude our conversation about The Hills Have Eyes.
Oh, wait. I'm so excited for what we're watching next week. I will let somebody else do the full introduction because I oh wait, I think we did see it. We watched it last summer, right?
I
Or in the
wasn't
fall
there,
or
so
something.
I haven't seen this in years now, so I don't want to do the intro. Sydney, you're
Wait.
our old movie specialist.
But
Sydney,
tell
you're our
us
certified olds.
why.
Come on, tell us.
Tell us why this movie before you say what it is.
So we are throwing it back to one of the OG baddies of the genre. Well, allegedly. Because this is the first movie we're watching, Friday the 13th.
Hey!
Where we
Friday
get
the 13th for Tuesday the 13th.
a
I'm so excited. I haven't seen this in so long, but I remember really liking it.
listen, it has Kevin Bacon.
Oh yeah. And this is the only one from the series I've seen.
I haven't seen a lot of, I've seen the second one and the third one, and then Freddy versus Jason.
Oh.
Yes. So I've only seen this, so I'm missing out pretty much, if you've seen the movie, on like one of the big three in its entirety. So whoopsies. I'll work on that. We'll cover the subsequent ones or some of them at some point, but we gotta start at the beginning, you know.
Gotta start at the beginning.
And what says summer more than Kevin Bacon in a Speedo?
Nothing.
Summer has begun, you guys.
Baby. So what was I gonna say? Oh god. Oh.
If you like what you've heard,
so if you're excited for next week and you want a reminder to listen, well, I have a great built-in system here. It's called our social media. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, or TikTok at spooky_Tuesday. And we also have a Facebook and a Tumblr at Spooky Tuesday Pod. And, you know, are you feeling like you want to give back? You've listened to us and you're hearing our voice, and we must get tired from screaming all day, every day. Why not give us something to replenish our spirit? And that thing is a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Just consider it. We would love to hear from you. Anyway, thanks for listening.
Bye, Spooky.
my spookies.
Bye.
My spookies.
What was that?
Spooky Tuesday was created by Monica Haidt, Sydney Thompson, and Chelsea Duff, and edited by Sydney Thompson. Our gorgeously spooky tunes are all thanks to Tamra Simons, who you can follow on Instagram at Captain Tamra, and our podcast art is by Mary Murphy, who you can find on Instagram at the_moon_OMG.
Hey, Doug, you want to try?
Hey, don't point that at me.
Oh, don't worry, man. The safety's on.
Bobby,
Yeah.
leave Doug alone. He's a Democrat. He doesn't believe in guns.